We did have water for our guests. They just didn't notice. Excellent. The water is all labeled back here. Guest speaker 1, guest speaker 2, and me. They didn't seem to drink my water, so that's good. All right, everybody. And my briefing book is falling apart, which must mean it's almost the end of 2011. All right. Happy holidays, everybody. Exactly. I've missed you all.
Deeply.
Let me do a couple of things at the top, and then we'll go to your questions. The first is with regard to Bosnia and Herzegovina. The United States welcomes the agreement reached yesterday among Bosnian political leaders to form the Council of Ministers and further agreements on the 2011 budget and the laws necessary for EU integration. We urge the parties and institutions to work rapidly to implement these agreements and to complete formation of the state-level government, which can effectively advance the shared interests of all citizens. The second issue is on Egypt. The United States is deeply concerned that Egyptian judicial and police officials raided the offices of another number of non-governmental organizations today, including the National Democratic Institute and the International Republican Institute. This action is inconsistent with the bilateral cooperation we have had over many years. Ambassador Ann Patterson has been in touch today with the Egyptian Prime Minister on this matter, and Assistant Secretary of State Feltman has also been in touch with the Egyptian ambassador here. We call on the Egyptian government to immediately end the harassment of NGO staff, return all property, and resolve this issue immediately. Let's go to what's on your minds.
Stay on that same topic.
Yep.
Did the Prime Minister or the Ambassador explain the rationale for this action?
Well, I'm not going to get into the details of our private diplomatic exchanges, except to say that we were very clear that this issue needs immediate attention, and we look forward to hearing back from the Egyptian government as soon as possible.
It sounds like, based on your comments, that you were not satisfied with whatever explanation they did provide. Is that a fair characterization?
Well, suffice it to say, we don't think that this action is justified, and we want to see the harassment end, and we want to see the property returned and the staff allowed to proceed as normal.
But, I mean, speaking generally, they were able to provide some explanation for it, or were they not able to do that at all?
Again, I'm not going to get into the details of the conversations that we had either with the Prime Minister or with the Ambassador here, except to say that we made strong representations and asked for immediate action.
Could you give us some details, Toria? We have been hearing on the ground that they went in, they took basically everything, papers, computers, etc., also confirmed that nobody was injured and that they might have taken some money as well?
I don't know about the last issue, Jill. We've obviously been in contact with NDI and with IRI during the course of the day. They've reported concerns not only about their staff, but about their property, about their ability to continue to operate. And we have relayed, as you see here, both publicly and privately, our concerns about these
Do you
things.
believe that anybody was injured?
I don't have any information one way or the other on that, Jill. I would refer you to the affected institutions.
What do you think this says more broadly about Egypt's commitment to democracy?
Well, again, as you know, we believe that these NGOs are there to support the democratic process. Some of these are institutions that are supported by the United States government that work around the world in the interest of helping citizens realize their goals of democratic processes taking root in their country. And we have been very open and transparent with Egyptian authorities at all levels, particularly about the operating procedures and policies of NDI, IRI, and other international other NGOs that we support. So we are very concerned because this is not appropriate in the current environment.
But what does it say about Egypt's military council when these types of actions are occurring?
Again, we've also been in touch, Ambassador Patterson has, with senior Egyptian military officials, asking them to take appropriate action. I'm not in a position right now to speak to who ordered this, what was behind it, etc.
But is there an environment right now that's conducive to democratic advancement when actions such as these occur?
Well, again, we've just had a number of successful rounds of elections, elections that were generally judged to be free, fair, with open, broad participation, so that is a good thing. This is not a good thing, so we are obviously expressing our concern.
Has Ambassador Patterson been in touch with any of the organizations and offered them any assistance in the meantime?
No, of course, she and her staff have been in close contact, and we in Washington have also been in close contact and have wanted to ascertain the facts so that we can work with them to resolve the situation.
Well, just for the record, could you just tell us, often it is, it's alleged that they are an arm of the U.S. government. They do receive some type of funding from the State Department, et cetera. Can you just explain precisely what is their relationship, if any, with the U.S. government? And could there be any attempt to overthrow or do anything like that in another country?
These are both non-governmental organizations. They are strongly supported around the world with U.S. government funds. Their primary purpose around the world is to support the development of democratic institutions. They work most actively, both NDI and IRI, in countries that are in democratic transition. They do things like train poll monitors, train poll workers, train political parties in how to mount their campaigns, but they don't support any individual candidate, any individual party, and all of their work is open to public scrutiny and to government scrutiny, and we've been, particularly in the Egyptian case, extremely transparent. They have been extremely transparent about the programs that they have in Egypt, about who's participating, etc.
Has anyone in the U.S. government given any warning to this? How did Ambassador Patterson find out about it?
I can't speak to how the embassy was alerted. I would assume that they were alerted by the organizations themselves, but to my knowledge, we did not have any advance warning of this action by the government.
Okay, and just to go back, so she has been in touch with these organizations. Has the embassy offered them any assistance in the meantime, if they, yeah, I guess that's it.
Well, obviously what they are seeking primarily, both in Egypt and here in Washington, is to have the situation resolved so that they can resume their normal activities, particularly given that we are still in the middle of this intense electoral season in Egypt.
Any other subject?
Well, are we finished with this one?
Just one more.
Yeah.
This is not the first time, I believe. I think this is the first time you're coming out this strongly and giving kind of a warning to Egyptian SCAF. But my question is a fair description that you only come out when the NGOs like this, supported by U.S. government, be in touch? On the other hand, for months since the revolution, there have been constant complaints come from activists, and would be fair that you have been quiet all those months, complaints similar to this?
I don't think that's fair. We've spoken out about freedom of NGO activity for many months in the Egyptian context and asked for a level playing field for all international NGOs.
Is this going to trigger any kind of process, or did already triggered any kind of process about the relationship between the U.S. government and the SCAF from now on, or would it be in the future if you did not receive the answer you have been seeking?
Again, we are looking for this issue to be resolved immediately. Please.
Yeah, I have another question about that. The conditions, there are conditions now on U.S. aid to Egypt. Is this the kind of thing that the Secretary will take into consideration in deciding whether or not the Egyptian government should get $1.3 billion?
Well, Michelle, as you've said, we do have a number of new reporting and transparency requirements on funding to Egypt that we have to make to the Congress. The Egyptian government is well aware of that and is certainly needs to be aware of that in the context of how quickly this issue gets resolved.
On India?
Yeah, India, go ahead.
National Investigation Agency of India had charged a number of individuals, including several ISI agents and also LET connections, and all, including Mr. Hadley, who is here in the U.S. with the Indian official had already interviewed him in Chicago. My question is that this is in connection with the several bombings throughout India, including in Mumbai attacks. Have anybody contacted the U.S. with this charge sheet, which was handed over in Parliament this week? And if they have requested any further interviews or getting Hadley to India for further questioning or to face charges?
I don't have anything in particular on that, Goyal. I will take the question. If we have anything to share, we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
On India,
Yes.
you are sending a comedy group to India. What is the comedy behind it?
Well, thank you for that. To gender it, we are indeed sending an Indian American comedy group. We are supporting a seven-city tour that they are making around India. They're called Make Chai Not War, and this is part of our regular global cultural exchange program that we do around the world. There are 3 Indian American comedians, and the reason we decided to support this tour is because among the things that they are known for is their talk about religious tolerance, about the importance of breaking down prejudices, and about the positive experiences they had growing up as Indian Americans in the United States. They will be in India January 4th to 17th. As I said, in 7 cities. In addition to doing shows, they'll also be holding audience discussions on these issues of religious tolerance and doing workshops and having some interviews with the press.
Which cities and what is the budget?
I believe the full tour costs about $100,000. The U.S. Embassy in New Delhi is supporting them with a grant of $88,000. I don't have the 7 cities, but we'll get them for you. Yeah.
To Iraq, weapon sales. Has there been discussion in this building with any Iraqi officials about whether or not they're meeting the conditions for these arms sales to go ahead?
I can't speak to that. As you know, our main focus has been in trying to encourage the Iraqi political groups to talk to each other and to create a broad national dialogue about the way forward. With regard to the arms sales, these, as you know, are long planned, and they're part of the transition process for the Iraqis to manage their own security within their own resources. Sure.
Iran?
Just wait. How are those efforts going to promote dialogue? It's been a few days that's been the same message, yet there hasn't seemed to be a palpable effect yet in Iraq. Can you just shed some light on how you're going about this and what tangible results that's producing?
Well, as you know, the Vice President has been active in his personal diplomacy with individual Iraqi leaders. Our ambassador, Jim Jeffrey, has seen and talked to all of the major figures in Iraq. We're encouraging a process that a number of them have begun talking about, which is to have a sit-down, to have a dialogue among themselves soon after the new year. And we have seen some encouraging public statements by a few of them over the last couple of days, indicating that they also believe that a national dialogue needs to take place soon after the new year.
Okay. Do you think certain actions need to be taken before this, to really kickstart this dialogue, such as withdrawing charges against rival politicians, things of this nature?
I think we're not going to get into the middle of this and dictate one way or the other. Clearly, the Iraqi political groups need to sit down together and work this through in a manner that is consistent with Iraq's constitution and their commitments to each other.
I understand, but can certain, for example, just
You're talking within the context of the Iraqi constitution and meet international judicial standards. We need to get the main groups in Iraq talking to each other again about how they can move forward.
But in this case, you agree with the need for a judicial process to take place? You don't think that